little dude. Hey, where'd you go? Good time to start. Good time to start filming. I might just lay down because this shit isn't comfortable. Oh yeah. Okay. So guys, I want to talk about why I believe psychedelic hallucinations are real. And I hope this isn't windy as fuck. I don't know what it sounds like. I haven't recorded out in public ever. I did actually already try and record this, and I tried to make a one of my more polished videos. But then as I kept talking to the camera, I was like, this is hard. This is a hard subject to talk about. And I was expecting it to be like a 30-minute, don't have to do any notes, don't have to do any preparation, just film it, record it, and I'm pretty much be able to push it out straight away. But as I started recording, I started thinking that this is way more complicated than I originally thought. And well, let me just get into it basically. Okay, so the reason why I think psychedelic hallucinations are real, and I still do think they're real to an extent, but it's a very complicated argument. So one thing is for sure, they need to be taken seriously. There's no doubt about that. And I think they need to be taken way more seriously than people who haven't tried them before do. And I think one of the reasons why there's a big difference between people who have tried them, people who haven't tried them, it's very rare for somebody to try psychedelics and thinking originally that, oh, I'll be able to dismiss it easily, I'll be able to know that I'm just on drugs and it's just fucking up my brain. I haven't met anybody who's thought that, had a powerful psychedelic trip and come out of it with the same opinion. I was one of those people. I was a person who thought, yeah, no way these psychedelics have any sense of legitimacy to them or their trips. And so it's I was reading these trip reports when I was doing psychology in high school about people who were saying it was the top 3 most mystical and even religious experiences, or their psychedelic trips were in the top 3 most important and mystical experiences of their life. And I was like, what's mystical about it? You're on a drugs, it's just fucking with your brain. But anybody who's tripped knows that's not the case. I think one of the strongest reasons for that, for one, is that there's a very enhanced sense of realism, or realness when you're tripping. This sense of realness I never would have known about or sensed until taking psychedelics when it's enhanced. And it's very hard to describe what that's like, but everything feels realer, and all the thoughts that you're having seem like they make more clarity and make more sense than in sober reality. I've talked plenty of times in this channel about the sort of thoughts I've had, and you can really decide whether or not you think they make more sense than the sort of thoughts we have when we're sober, so I won't get into this video. But there's more reasons, obviously, that I think psychedelic trips should be taken seriously. The common thought about what psychedelics do is they just fuck up your senses, throw you into a realm of chaos, and then the brain has to make order. The brain has to make some kind of order, and so you order the chaotic experience, come out of it, and share it, assuming that you just went through something super profound and was showing mystical godlike states, but really you just went through a chaotic experience and made sense of it. The problem I have with this, obviously, is that there are things like deliriants out there and meth psychoses and things like this, where they do throw you into a realm of chaos, where your brain is kind of being scrambled and you don't know what the fuck is going on. I've had trips on non-psychedelics where shit's just been crazy and I haven't been able to make sense of what's going on. There's definitely the ability to have experience without coherent order. And dreams is a perfect example. Dreams do not have the same sort of order and do not relate to sober reality like psychedelic trips do. Psychedelic trips, you'll go to this crazy place and it will be talking to you about reality. The thing is, you drift from waking state consciousness to a deep psychedelic state, which you do not do on or in dreams. You go unconscious from the waking state and then you wake up in a dream. If the waking state of consciousness is pure objective reality, and what some people think that the LSD state is just total imagined reality, I've said this before, then there should be a point where you can make the distinction of the fact that you're crossing over between the two. The fact is, you can't make the distinction. You'll go from this reality that I'm in right now to experiencing little people on the shoulders of individuals around you and they're all staring at you and smiling and laughing because you're in on this fucking giant ass weird joke that's going on in the universe, and you won't be able to notice the point where you crossed over between these two worlds. And the thing is because I think the worlds are related, that they derive from the same place. I think you're always hallucinating reality. Your perception is incredibly subjective, and we just forget how subjective it is. And this is why I think the psychedelic state is more true than the waking state, because it accounts for the fact that what you're experiencing is hallucinated reality. I think one of the reasons why I see, I've talked about the Truman Show effect on this channel. If you haven't heard of me talk about it, I'll link it up here, I guess. But there's like a Truman Show effect that many people have on LSD, where you'll feel like you're waking up, and everybody around you has been an actor for your whole life. Now, this actually makes rational sense for you to have this sort of experience, as crazy as that sounds, if you realize that your whole life you've been seeing the world through your senses and you haven't realized how much of it is hallucinated. You haven't realized that every person you know is a composition of your senses, of your predictions, of your interpretations, all of these being your subjective, a subjective aspect of yourself that you've composed, that you've combined and created an identity from. And these are the people around you. They are creations of you and reflections of you. And I would dare say reflections of your unconscious, because obviously you didn't consciously make them. So when you take psychedelics and you're actually getting direct access to parts of your brain which were previously locked in the unconscious, you're now having parts of your brain make new connections. So you're kind of getting direct access to the unconscious. This is reflected in your outside experience, and you're seeing people around you wake up as actors. They're basically, it's like a symbol. It's a form of symbolism, basically saying, we are, and this is why so many people here in their trips, the entities around them saying, we are you. We are you. I've certainly experienced that. And that's, I think, a message from these entities. I've called them the machine elves, which, if you abbreviate that, is ME or me. These entities that appear to be the actors in my world, they will actually say, we are you. And it makes sense because they are compositions of my senses. The people around me are compositions of my senses. And you might be saying, no, that just sounds freaking insane, because when you're sober, you can still, they might be a composition of your senses, but your senses aren't deceiving you. They're not like, they don't have a life of their own. They might be a shallow representation of reality, objective reality, but nevertheless, it's still a representation of objective reality. And to that I say, I gotta point out, what I'm seeing here are people around me, not just distorted, they're not just wavy or whatever. They're literally saying, we are you. They're coming up to me and smiling. These are my neighbors or the people around me. They're smiling and laughing. I can see, if I'm watching a movie and I get into the state of consciousness, as I said in my last trip report, I can even see little entities on their shoulders as these real actors in real life on the movie will actually turn, face the camera, laugh at what's going on. Like, it totally fucks with your perception of reality. And if it's able to fuck with your perception of reality to this extent, and it even gets more extreme, but I don't want to talk about it because it's kind of, I don't know how I want to phrase it. It's gotten to some extreme points, the way it's fucked with reality. I've just got to make sure I phrase it right when I do talk about it, because I don't want to sound even more insane than I do right now. But if all that's happening is new parts of your brain are being accessed, and in other words, more information is being flooded into your conscious mind, and that's able to alter reality to that extent, it shows you how much of the narrative that you live in reality, is a product of a certain chemical balance or a chemical state inside your mind, which is simply a product of our evolution. It's almost arbitrary, really. There's no indication to say that's objective reality. Every animal has probably an entirely different perception of reality, which we couldn't imagine. Just thinking the fact that LSD can alter our perception, it's still human perception that we're experiencing. It alters it that much. We couldn't imagine what a fucking animal experiences. So that's kind of a side point, but my point is there's no indication then that your sober perception, your waking state, is any more objective than the psychedelic state, because both of them are just kind of arbitrary chemical states. The thing is, this realm of actors, or the people around you being actors, this is like one layer of a super deep realm that you can access on different psychedelic drugs. It's not just like LSD takes you there. And it's not like LSD just takes me there. It's like all psychedelic drugs take many people there. And I've even had conversations with people, or at least a conversation with a person who's gotten to the Truman Show place off of psychedelics. Her name was Tanya Ray. It's fascinating. It's fascinating because it does point to a separate realm that simply is accessed by enabling or disabling something in the brain, rather than it just being chaos that's being ordered by the mind. Otherwise, they would just be there'd be way different experiences on every different drug, and definitely they would have way less similarities between each individual's experience. I've heard people say that this could just be because people are sharing trip reports online, we're watching it, and then the idea is impregnating our mind, and then we trip and it surfaces in our experience. I think that's such a load of garbage, and anybody who said that has not had a powerful DMT or a powerful psychedelic experience themselves. Besides the fact, like, for one, if you're going to discredit an experience that feels so real, you really have to question your reality. Like, if you're going to discredit an experience like that, you have to challenge the authenticity of this waking state of consciousness. Anecdotal evidence is obviously the worst kind of evidence, but personally I've had an experience where I had this Truman Show effect take place, and this happened before I'd read anybody's trip reports about this. I'd never heard of taking enough LSD that it seems like you break through to the other side of reality, where you actually see the truth of what's going on, where everybody are just actors in on your experience, and you're like this chosen person, center of the universe, which sounds absolutely insane to say it like that, of course. The thing is, everybody is the chosen person or the center of the universe. And it's such a unique and insane experience that I thought I had to share it online. And when I did share it online, I found comment after comment of people saying, oh, I went through the same thing. So I Googled it and found so many trip reports of people saying they'd gone through the exact same experiences I went through. And all of the effects and feelings that are related to this trip were being described before my eyes. It's freaking insane. And I don't like people here saying, oh, it's just, you've had the trip, hard to explain, and now you're just like interpreting it, through the first person's words you hear. It's a load of junk, man. It's like, maybe, but no. No. I'm pretty open-minded, but that's an insane theory to me, to be honest. Look, do I think it's to be taken objectively? No. Like I was saying before, the waking state of consciousness is extremely subjective. And we are hallucinating in a way more powerful way than we can imagine. That's not to say that our senses aren't being stimulated by a separate physical world from us. We just kind of need to interpret our senses. It seems like as the ego develops, the unconscious or our intuition or whatever it is developing a narrative and processing our senses and all of the information we receive from the external world. It's channeling all this information into a narrative that we can understand consciously. And this narrative is going to evolve as we develop and become more complicated. But, there's so much information that is present in the objective world that we could observe through science that we could never discern through through the narrative of reality that we experience. Like the fact that our reality is a composition of electrical signals being processed either from the outside world or from our body. Like, our very sense of self derives from the fact that we process electrical signals from our internal body passively until there's an issue, in which case we experience pain. And so it's like, well, then our mind becomes dependent on our body for how it feels. Our conscious becomes dependent. We make an association between the body and the mind, and then derives our sense of self being connected so deeply with the body. And then the outside world, we've realized at some point that we don't depend on electrical signals from the outside world, so we separate ourselves from them. We're all connected to it on some level. We don't experience the world as different electrical signals, whatever. One sec, I'm gonna get into my car. My point here is that a lot of these people who are dismissing the psychedelic experience don't realize how subjective the waking state of consciousness is. And really, they're just two states to be interpreted. I don't think that the people around me are literally actors. Like, I don't think I'm the only person in the world, in the universe, that's real, so to speak. But the reality that I exist in is my creation. So in this created universe, then no one is kind of real, if that makes sense. So that's a long-ass winded way of me basically saying I don't dismiss the psychedelic experience because I think there's a lot to be learnt from it, but also for people who are taking the psychedelic experience absolutely literally, you should be a little bit more skeptical, just as we are more skeptical of the waking state of consciousness. Even though me personally, I believe in the psychedelic state more. Anyway, guys, I'm going to leave it there. Sorry that this wasn't such a polished video. It's probably all over the place. I mean, I'm in my car while it's running right now, so it sounds like crap, no doubt. But yeah, this is just so I can try and make more videos for you guys. So see you all soon. And I want to thank all my patrons as well for the support you give this channel. Freaking from the bottom of my heart. Love you guys. All of you super Gs. So yeah, have a great day, guys. Love you. Peace.